To what extent are the causes of the French Revolution similar or different to those of the Egyptian Revolution? Okay, let's start by looking at the French Revolution. What was going on in France before the Revolution? Everyone ruling France, from the king to the poorest nobles, used their powers badly. They used the community as a way of obtaining money to live the luxurious lifestyles they were used to having. France was in a financial crisis when Louis XIV ascended to the throne. In order for the king to obtain the large amounts of money he needed in order to pay for all the government's expenses, like providing strong, large, powerful armies for war and building a huge, luxurious palace, he demanded large amounts of money from the people in the form of taxes that were just imposed on the people of the lower class. Nobility and upper class did not have to pay. Intelligent men warned the people in power that if they continued to treat the people with such cruelty, it would cause a lot of trouble. But they didn't listen. So the state of France before the revolution was quite simple: splendor and luxury amongst the rich, and misery amongst everyone else. So what caused the French Revolution? Some of the causes were that people did not agree with royal absolutism, peasants didn't agree with the semi-feudal system being used to distribute the land, France had a huge national debt caused by the unjust system of taxation. The people simply didn't understand how the rich could live with so much, several houses, insane amounts of food, whilst the rest of the people were starving and did not have enough money to find shelter. Another cause of the French Revolution was the rise of Enlightenment ideals. But how did the rise of Enlightenment ideals really cause the French Revolution? Although the collapse of everything was caused by the economic problems, the social unrest, and the conflicting ambitions of groups and individuals, amongst other things, the ideas provided by the philosophers of the French Enlightenment provided the ideas for the French Revolution. Throughout the Revolution, what was said, what was thought, and what was being asked was all based on the ideals that were brought up by the philosophers of the French Enlightenment. The French Revolution resulted in several things. It caused a radical social change based on the ideals of the Enlightenment. The French monarchy was abolished. The revolution also led to the rise of Napoleon Bonaparte. France was in armed conflicts with several European nations during and after the French Revolution. Lastly, it established a secular and democratic republic. However, this republic became increasingly authoritarian and militaristic. Now let's look at the Egyptian Revolution. What was happening in Egypt before the 2011 Egyptian Revolution? Egypt had been under authoritarian rule of Hosni Mubarak, who became president of Egypt after the assassination of Anwar el-Sadat in 1981. Since then, Egypt had been under 30 years of dictatorship and autocratic rule before the Egyptian Revolution. His political party, NDS, maintained rule under a state of emergency, meaning they could change and or suspend the function of executive, legislative, and or judiciary branch. They received aid and support from the West, mainly the United States, for supporting Israel. So what caused the Egyptian Revolution? One of the causes of the Egyptian Revolution was the emergency law, giving the Egyptians basically no rights. The law states that no people are allowed to start a movement against the leaders. It gives the military leaders or his deputy the right to control all newspapers and other media. Another cause was that the country was ruled under dictatorship for many years. The people were demanding for social, political, and economic reforms increasingly over time. Another cause of the Egyptian Revolution was that the preliminary elections were rigged. The Egyptian government had been corrupt for many years. 40% of the population was living under the international poverty line. The Egyptian Revolution was the successful revolution in Tunisia. Another cause was the rise in food prices, and lastly, police brutality. The Egyptian Revolution resulted in several things. It resulted in the overthrow of the Mubarak government. Prime Ministers Nafis and Shafiq resigned. The military assumed power. The constitution was suspended and the parliament was dissolved. Former ruling party was dissolved and its assets were given to the state. The government broke up the State Security Investigation Service. Mubarak, his family, and former ministers were prosecuted. Mohamed Morsi, new Egyptian president, elected democratically. Protests in response to the president's declaration as Islamist-backed constitution, followed by a second revolution and a coup d'etat. Both revolutions, although in very different time periods, had several similarities in their causes. Both, like any revolution, were caused because they were against the government that was running their country in a certain way. Money seemed to be an issue that I found on both sides. In both the French Revolution and the Egyptian Revolution, they were complaining about poverty and how in France they had to pay really high taxes, for example, for the king and the nobility to live well, while they were starving. In Egypt, they were complaining about the corrupt government and how 40% of the population was living under the international poverty rate. In both countries, the newspaper and the media were controlled by the government to try to avoid even more rebellion. The spreading of the French Revolution and the spreading of the Egyptian Revolution were on two different scales. The French Revolution did not really have a huge impact on the countries around them, and when it did, the government shut it off pretty quickly. However, I think this is one of the places in which the time period actually makes a really big difference, because now we have technology which allows the news to travel so much faster and reach a much bigger audience than it did back then. So I think that technology definitely affected the amount of people that the revolution influenced overall.